right? So it's not going to return unto him void. Okay. So let's read it again. 2 Ezra 15 verse 1 says, "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy, which I will put in thy mouth, saith Yahawah Bahasham, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true." All right. That means they're going to happen. Okay. They're not going to return void. They're going to accomplish that which they were sent out to do. Okay. So there are prophecies that have to be fulfilled. All right. Let's go to let's go here real quick. Right. So a couple of the prophecies that have to be fulfilled. Right. There's, of course, the MOTB. Okay. So unless the MOTB is pushed at a rapid rate and everybody is mandatory to take it, right? World War III starts to kick off and does everything, right? Things have to be fulfilled, all right, in order for Yahawashi to return, okay? Because everything must be accomplished that's in the book, all right. Talking about, before he comes. Okay. And one of the major things, and this is why you know that they have no idea. All right. So they picked a date, right? And said, yeah, this is it, right? But they're not going according to prophecies. All right. So this is one of the prophecies. This is Revelation chapter 13 and verse number 16. It says, "And he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, to receive, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their foreheads, and that no man might buy or sell, save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name." Okay. So the MOTB, right, or Revelation 13, 16, and 17 must be fulfilled, all right, before Yahawashi returns. Okay. And why do we say that? Right. When you look at it, right, and we know that this is a physical thing, all right, because when we go to the word for mark, right, we already know it's kadagma, all right. All right, it's thing, carved, sculpture, graven work, or idolatrous image. Okay, but we know that has to be fulfilled because when you go to Revelation 14 and verse number 9, it says doom for the worshipers of the beast. Okay, so punishment for what? For taking the MOTB. Right, if people haven't taken the MOTB yet, it hasn't been pushed to the small, to the rich, the poor, the free, and the bond, right? Then guess what? Then prophecy hasn't yet been fulfilled. All right. So this is Revelation chapter 14, verse 9. It says, "And the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, If any man worship the beast in his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of the Most High, which is poured out without mixture into the cup of his indignation, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone." All right, talking about what? Those nuclear weapons, those ICBM missiles, all right, with the nuclear warheads. All right, it says he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone in the presence of the holy angels and in the presence of the Lamb. Okay, so when these things, we understand that, in order for the missiles to launch, those ICBM missiles, all right, to be shot, here in Babylon, guess what? There has to be first the mandatory implementation of the mark, the karagma, all right, which is a physical thing. So that has to happen first, and then destruction will come. But when destruction comes, right, it says in the presence of the Lamb. So we know that Yahawashi will be there, To do what? At that point, he's going to be coming to deliver the elect. All right. The elect of Israel. All right. Let's get that real quick. Matthew 24 and verse number 30. Let's start at verse 29. It says, immediately after the tribulation of those days, shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give light, and the stars shall fall from heaven. All right. Those missiles, those arrows. All right. That's what? That's spoken about in the book of Jeremiah. All right. That those things have not yet come to pass. All right. So if we're talking about the 23rd, right, there's a lot of stuff that has to happen quickly. Okay. But the scriptures tell you no man knoweth the day or the hour. All right. But we understand the time that we're living in through prophecy. Okay. It says, shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken. All right. By what? Those ICBM missiles hitting, Babylon the Great. Boom. Rock, like the book in Isaiah 24 says that the earth shall rock to and fro like a drunkard. All right. From those missiles hitting. Okay. It says, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. So as those missiles are getting ready to rain down on Babylon the Great, right, aka America, we understand that Yahawashi is going to be coming, all right, with the host of angels, okay? And what's going to happen? All right, before those missiles hit the Babylon the Great, it says, and he shall send his angels with the great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from one end of heaven to the other. Okay, so the angels and Yahawashi are going to be gathering the elect throughout the four corners of the earth. Who are those? Those are the elect of Israel, the so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and those of the diaspora who look like these other nations, but your lineage goes back to Jacob. All right. And those who are of the elect of Israel are going to be the ones who are going to be saved. All right. It's not going to be the whole Christian church, beamed up yelling Jesus, right? No. Those who are going to be calling on the true names, all right, of the Heavenly Father, whose name is Yahawah, and his sons, whose name is Yahawashi. And ultimately, you have to be of Israel, all right, to even make it on the ships. Those are the chariots of Israel. All right. Those are the chariots of Israel. Let's get this real quick. Let's go to Wisdom of Solomon. All right. Wisdom of Solomon talks about, the strangeness of the salvation. Okay. Because when Yahawashi comes, he's coming to gather his elect, and he's coming to bring destruction. All right. But before those missiles hit, Yahawashi is the scriptures talk about how the righteous shall scarcely be saved. All right. So the missiles can be in the air. They can be ready to touch down. And guess what? The righteous, right? Those of the elect who were chosen from the foundation of the earth, those are going to be the ones who are going to be beamed up. All right. This is Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5 and verse number 1. It says, then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him and have made no account of his labor. When they see it, they shall be troubled with terrible fear and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation so far beyond all that they have looked for. All right. Because people are not going to be expecting the spacecrafts to come, from the heavens and start beaming up people, man. Start beaming up so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. All right. And just start, beaming folks up into the spacecraft. All right. Before that destruction happens. All right. But guess what? Your wacky tacky pastor doesn't know that because he doesn't understand prophecy, and he doesn't understand that things have to be fulfilled. All right. We haven't even got deep into Jacob's trouble. All right. Jeremiah 30 and 6 and 7. All right. We haven't even got into that yet. All right. Prophecies have to be fulfilled before Yahawashi returns. Okay. And no man knoweth the hour, not even Yahawashi. Okay. But we do understand that prophecies have to come to pass first. Okay. And we understand, you see the wacky tacky churches, and like Elder Apostle Tahar had mentioned, this is how we know that other religions have not don't have the truth. All right, because in the book of Daniel, it talks about how the books were sealed. Okay, that understanding. And if we go to the book of Isaiah, right, Salakia, Isaiah 29. Let's go to, let's start at verse 10. This is Isaiah chapter 29 and verse number 10. And it says, "For Yahawah, Bahasham Shai, have poured out upon you a spirit of deep sleep and have closed your eyes." It says, "The prophets and your rulers, the seers, hath he covered." And it says, "And the vision of all is become unto you as the words of a book that is sealed." Okay, how is it sealed? Let's get that. Let me keep reading. It says, which men deliver to one that is learned. Okay, they come to their pastors and ask them, hey, when do you think he's come? Right? It says, saying, "Read this, I pray thee." And he saith, "I cannot, for it is sealed." All right. It says, "And the book is delivered to him that is not learned, saying, Read this, I pray thee. And he saith, I am not learned." Okay. Why? Because the book has been shut up. All right. The book was shut up for a certain time. Okay. That's why your wacky tacky pastors, they couldn't, they tell you don't, we don't even go into the book of Revelation. It's too complicated, right? Or they don't understand prophecies. Okay. They thinking the dragon's gonna come down and you're gonna be fighting dragons. There's a war up in the heaven and they're fighting, right? They don't understand what's really going on. Okay. Why? Because the book was sealed. Let's get that in the book of Daniel. All right. Daniel, Salakia, chapter 12 and verse 4. It says, "But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words and sealed the book even to the time of the end." Right? And this is how we know that we are at the end. Why? Because the book is unsealed. Now we understand the mysteries, all right, of the scriptures. It says, "Many shall run to and fro." All right. And talking about how, now people can travel great distances. You got airplanes and these different, modes of transportation where people can run back and fro quickly. All right. It says, "Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." Okay. Because what? The books have been unsealed. All right. Matter of fact, if we go to, no, I might not go to that because it might cause it to pause up. But when you go to the book of Second Ezra, it talks about, it shall be open in the firmament. All right, talking about what? The unicorn or the internet, the internet. All right, we're in the end days, and guess what? Now the book has been opened, and everyone can see. Well, how can they see? All right, through the internet. All right, and the teachings of the true teachers that have come back on the earth. All right, to show the understanding. All right. But even then, most people can't understand because they're still blinded. All right. As you go to the book of Romans, Romans 11 and 7, it says, "What then? Israel have not obtained that which he seeketh for." All right. Because all Israel is ultimately looking for salvation. They're looking for understanding of these scriptures. All right. They're looking for, the prophecies and different things. It says, "But the election have obtained it, and the rest were blinded." All right. It says, "According as it is written, the Most High have given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear, unto this day." Okay. So even unto this day, many people can't grasp it, right? But the elect can grasp it. The elect can understand it. All right. And they understand that, guess what? Prophecies have to be fulfilled. All right. Before Yahawashi returns. All right. Jacob's trouble still has to, pop off. Okay. And you can imagine how Jacob's trouble was going to be, right? When that mandatory implementation of the MOTB, right? The Karagma, which is a physical thing, the RFID hip. All right. Once that's pushed, the trouble that's going to come upon Jake. Okay. You have the troops, all right, being sent into these inner cities, right? These things have to be fulfilled. Okay. You have, once the MOTB is set in place and is pushed, right? Then the rest of the prophecies can happen quickly. World War III can pop off, and those missiles can start flying. Once those missiles start flying, and they're getting ready to touch down in Babylon to destroy this place, like the Revelation 18 talks about, in 1 hour, right? But before they hit, Yahawashi is coming with the angels to gather his elect. All right, to take them, right, in the spacecraft, all right, to avoid the destruction that's coming upon Babylon and upon the earth. Okay. But ultimately, the whole earth is not going to be destroyed, mainly Babylon, which is here in America. And then you're going to have, Israel. All right. But unlike Babylon, which is going to be destroyed and not going to be inhabitable, Israel is going to be destroyed, but it's going to be built back up. Okay. And guess what? Because, when the elect come down, right? Guess what? They still got to have the slaves. All right. Revelation 13, 9, and 10. All right. Whosoever, let me get that real quick so I don't butcher it, right? They're going to come back down on the earth because guess what? The kingdom of heaven is going to be here on the earth. All right. It says, if any man have an ear, this is Revelation chapter 13, verse 9. If any man have an ear, let him hear. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. And he that killeth with the sword must be killed with the sword. Here is the patience and the faith of the saints. Okay. And guess what? The kingdom of heaven is going to be here on earth. All right. So guess what? These things must be fulfilled in order for Yahawashi to return. Okay. And when he returns, he's coming to claim, all right, the earth and all the kingships. Okay. The scriptures talk about him having many crowns because he's going to take over the world, the earth. All right. And in between. All right. So, they talk about the 23rd. All right. But guess what? Prophecies have to be fulfilled before Yahawashi returns. Okay. Because that's all part of prophecy. But if you don't understand prophecy, then, you'll fall for the okie doke, right? And you'll go out there and, sell everything and sit there with a sign, talking about Jesus loves me. All right. And you don't even know his name. Okay. So I just wanted to do this lesson. Lord's will, this is edifying, right? With that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory. I want to say, call Halal Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. Peace and blessings to the elect of the 12 tribes scattered abroad, a mighty shalom to the 144,000 men. Double honors to the apostles and elders of GMS who have ruled well to the spirit and have fed and edified the sheep in these last days. Another mighty shalom to the rest of the elect out there. All right, the household of faith. All right, let this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding be your stability in these times. All right, and understand that prophecies must be fulfilled. All right, and if you don't understand prophecies, then you really don't understand these scriptures. Okay, because salvation is for the Israelites and of the elect of Israel. All right, Ephesians 1:4, that were predestinated before the foundation of the earth. They were already predestined to get salvation. All right, so with that, we say a ball, and shalom.